This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. It's those moments where heaven touches earth and the miraculous happens. Through divine intervention, God incidents, angels, you name it. This episode has to do with money. It says right there in Jeremiah, "For I have plans for you to prosper." All right? And our Touched by Heaven moment has to do with those times, those moments where money just falls out of heaven at the exact perfect time. I am your host, Trapper Jack. Ever prayed for money? Yeah, I've prayed for money. In fact, I have a story for you coming up in this episode. But money, well, sometimes we treat God like he's a vending machine. If you just hit him on the side often enough and kind of shake him a little bit. Anything in there? Sure seem to have all the money. Could you share a little bit? Come on. Yeah, that doesn't work. Or sometimes, you ever try kind of humming that tune, hoping he'll notice? The tune. What is that? Hebrew scatting? It doesn't work either. For some, you ever tried the two-rule method? The two big rules for financial freedom? Number one, do not tell everybody everything that you know. All right, let's get started. Coming up in today's program, money. As in all things, God does not think like we do. Praying for money. Does getting down on your knees help? Cliff Ravenscraft and the beauty of boredom. And those Bible verses come back from episode 1. They are the key to all of this.
Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
Wait a minute. Before we get going here, are we really talking about money in this episode? I mean, up to now we've had angels and divine intervention saving somebody's life and somebody's home from burning down and conversations with heaven and deceased loved ones and money? Really? Are we going there? Yeah. Why? Because that's a conversation like I'm having with myself right now. Really? Why are you talking to yourself? Because no one else is here right now. Okay, fine. Okay, sit down. This is a conversation with heaven too, about following God's plan. This is about following the Holy Spirit. This is about following God to the work we're supposed to be doing, to the purpose that we are to fulfill. And that ultimately has to do with whatever blessings that come from that. That can be financial, emotional, psychological, spiritual, whatever it is, but it's following God's plan and the things that we do to get in the way of that. We'll get into boredom because that's a pretty good sign that maybe something's not quite right in our day. So anyway, that's why we're going there. But this is the conversation also, just another conversation with God, with Holy Spirit, and following. Because like I say, I keep saying it over and over that God does not think like we do. He certainly does not think like we do when it comes to money. And he shows that in the gospel stories. Especially here's that one that just you go, what? What is he doing? The one about, okay, the master's going to go away, and so he gives one of his peoples, he gives them 5 talents. A talent, it's like saying a bazillion. It's like saying $1 billion. So he gives somebody $5 bazillion. So that's like Warren Buffett. Okay, Warren, here's $5 bazillion. And then he gives somebody 2 bazillion. So that's like the Amazon guy, the guy who runs Amazon. Okay, here's your 2 bazillion. And let's see, who we're going to give a bazillion? Oh, Netflix guy here. Okay, so you have Warren Buffett, the Amazon guy, and the Netflix guy, all with their bazillions of dollars. And then the master splits. And he comes back, and what happens? Well, of course, Warren Buffett, he's doubled his money. You know he's going to. Way to go, Warren. And he goes to the Amazon guy who, long term, that's the guy you want to bet your money on, right? Because someday he will own the world. The Amazon guy is going to own the world. You know that. All the stores will be closed and we'll just get everything through Amazon. In fact, they'll rename the planet Amazon. 3rd planet from the sun. Oh, you mean Amazon? 2-day shipping to Pluto. Just saying. Okay, so Amazon guy doubles his money. So he's now got $4 bazillion. And then Netflix guy, he puts his money in the ground. And what does the master do? He gets really steamed at Netflix guy and says, okay, now give your bazillion to Warren Buffett. What? So what are we supposed to learn from that? Well, okay, we're supposed to be good stewards, right? With whatever we're given, whatever blessings we are given, we are to thank God for them and be good stewards, right? That's what we're supposed to do. But also, what hits me in this episode, when we say talents, we're not just talking bazillion dollars. We're talking about those talents that God gave us. He gave us all talent. He gave us all a passion. In there somewhere along the way, We've had our passions. Sometimes they change. Sometimes they stay the same. And we're supposed to be good stewards of those talents. And that's why listening to Cliff Ravenscraft today is going to be so good. Cliff, this guy has a lesson for all of us. Here's the deal on this guy. Cliff was in the insurance business. His family owned an insurance company. He was the heir to the insurance company, right? And he was really good at it. He was really good at selling insurance, but he was bored out of his mind. So instead of just going, okay, I'm going to be bored, but I'm going to make a whole lot of money, he said, no, I have a new passion, and it was podcasting. He got into podcasting, and to make money at it, he became the podcast answer man, teaching podcasting, and he started making a wonderful living again. And then guess what? He got bored again. So what is he doing now? He wants to be his generation's Tony Robbins. Wow, talk about a goal. He wants to stand in front of thousands of people in an arena or wherever and help them get to their next level, to motivate people and for them to fulfill their lives. So it keeps shifting for him, and he keeps going with it because he knows when he's bored, that is a sign. How many of us do that? Or how many of us just go, well, it's a check. Oh, well, I'll just take it. And then we kill God's plan. We start hating our jobs. We're not supposed to hate our work. That's a sign of something. We go back to that very first episode when I asked Alexa, what's today's Bible verse? And she said,
Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans.
all right, God is going to work with you. He will establish your plans. That's from Proverbs. That's Proverbs. And then Dave Jackson said, well, I live by Jeremiah 29:11. I'm going, what is that? And once again, it's about God's plans working with us to help us.
For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
Our job is to be listening for his voice, for that nudge. Do you know what God sounds like? Do you spend enough time with him to know his voice?
I'm the one, creator of the heavens and the earth, Alpha and Omega. I'm God.
Yes, he sounds a lot like Morgan Freeman. Go figure. Who knew? I mean, who knew? If we work together with God, some incredible things can happen.
People want me to do everything for them, when what they don't realize is they have the power. You want to see a miracle, son? Be the miracle.
Thanks, God. Appreciate you dropping by today. Now, Cliff Ravenscraft. I told you, he's when bored, he moves. Bored, moved. He's a man of faith. He's always talked about his faith, how he's linked up with God. I want to get into how he prays, and also he's the one who had the touch by heaven moment we're talking about, when heaven just opened up and threw some money on him because he had followed God's plan. What he knew was God's plan. Cliff Ravenscraft.
Well, here's what I think about prayer. Prayer is different in my mind today than it was in the first, 15 years of my faith journey. Prayer for me is constant communion with God. Prayer is, I experience prayer when I'm having conversations with my wife. When I'm actually journaling, I have prayer. When I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking in conversation with the Spirit of God. My prayer life is so much more fervent than it ever had been in the past, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop and pray about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what St. Paul talks about, always being in prayer, and people don't understand it, but he's always in the room, is what you're saying. He's always in the room.
I believe anytime I'm having a conversation with myself, I'm having a conversation with God, because God is in me. God is the Spirit of God indwells within me. He and I are one. He's there. He's the one. He's prompting a majority of these thoughts that come. So I don't necessarily go and say, okay, you know what? Let me take some time alone and go get on my knees and shut the doors and sit down and pray. That's how I used to do things, and I'm not saying that I don't ever do that, because that does occasionally happen. But prayer for me, I feel like every day, all day, I'm in communion with God. So yes, my faith was definitely a part of that. And it's very clear to me. I believe that we are all here when it comes to my faith. I believe we are all 100% here, put on this earth to do good works that were planned ahead of time for us to do. So I believe that there are things that I'm meant to do in this world, And before I was born, God designed me to fulfill a specific need in the world, or many specific needs in the world. And I was absolutely convinced also, and it's the leverage as well. I was convinced that spending 40 hours a week as an insurance agent was not in line any longer. By the way, I do believe for the first 10 years that I was an insurance agent, I was an insurance agent for, I think, 12 years total. But for the first 10 years, I believe that's exactly where God wanted me. And there's so many valuable things that I picked up during those first 10 years that are still serving me and helping me serve others today. So there's no question in my mind, I was where God wanted me for 10 years of my career as an insurance agent. But for the final 2 years, it became very clear that no, what got you here is not what's going to take you to where I want you to go next, or what I have for you in the future.
He wanted you uncomfortable. He wanted you uncomfortable to move you.
Absolutely. And in fact, I'm always, ever since that first jump, that first big leap from, being the lifetime of employee to creating my own business, that was my first big leap out of the boat, if you will, onto the water, walking in this constant state of discomfort. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And what I've realized is every single time I've gotten comfortable and I feel secure, I realize that I'm bored. And God prompts me, says, okay, you're ready. It's time. Let's get you out of this boat. The thing is you've got this thing down. It's time to stretch you even further, because there's even bigger and better things. And what's amazing to me is today I can sit here and I can think of myself on a stage in a stadium with tens of thousands of people. I don't have I don't know all of the steps to get there, although I've already begun to take steps in that direction. But while I can see it now, and for me to think of me actually standing on that stage at this moment in time, I can't think of anything bigger than that, right? That's as big as I could possibly dream right now. But the interesting thing that I know about this journey is that the day that I'm on that stage, I will not say to myself, oh, I've arrived. You know what I mean? Because at that time, the same angst that I feel about what that is, that at that time, there will already be something new, something bigger, something then that's going to stretch my ability to believe who I am and what I'm able to achieve in this world.
Jumping back to that time where, okay, you go from this nice, comfortable 6-figure salary, and then you jump into podcasting, and your first year is $11,000, and it's like, you're grabbing at savings, and however it is you're trying to make things go. We can be dazzled by his generosity. We can be dazzled by how he does answer prayers before we even ask them. And when you told the story, and the story I'm leaning you towards here. I think it was August of 2009. So we're already well into our almost nearing the end of our second year in business. And what happened was, I think it was the August paycheck, because we were paying ourselves once a month. My wife is like, hey, here's the budget that I have written out. This is how much money we need as a paycheck to be able to meet all the needs that I've determined for us. And it was about $8,000. Now, anybody who owns their own business knows to pay yourself $8,000, it really costs you, at least in the United States here in our area of town, with all the taxes, both federal and state and all the other things you have to do, it really costs $12,000 for that. So I'm like, I said the money's there for that, but I was really hoping to take some of that extra that came in this month and to kind of take some of the financial pressure off of next month. So I was hoping to maybe, leave an extra $4,000, maybe $6,000 in the account. So that way, if I only made $4,000 next month, everything's going to be fine. She goes, but we really need this. We need all of the things on this list. And she showed me the list, and she was
okay, we could argue needs versus wants and all that good stuff. But the reality is that she made a compelling argument of why $8,000. And she goes, but don't you trust that, if God can do what he did last month? I said, but that's not how I'm playing this. This is like, I believe we need I just argued for this. And so what happened was she had knocked it from $8,000 net all the way down to $5,000. So what happened was she's writing the check for $5,000 instead of $8,000. And I can just tell she's a little deflated. She was not happy that I won this one, if you know what I mean. And again, I didn't go to God in prayer like some might think, but all of a sudden we'll just say this thought came to my mind: write the check for $8,000. And I'm thinking to myself, but I really want this. Do you trust that God can continue to provide? I know you're not going to do this every single month, but do you trust that God can continue to provide? Yeah. Do you believe that everything that Stephanie on there has? Yeah. Has she sacrificed for you over the last couple years to make this all come true? Yes. Are you willing to sacrifice and have that financial pressure to do whatever it takes to make sure to make up next month what comes in? If you write the check, yes, then write the check for $8,000. Now, in my mind, that's prayer. Okay, that for me, that's prayer. That was me and God having a little chat, and I felt that this wasn't an audible voice of God, but I felt God saying, "Tell her to void the check for $5,000 and rewrite it for $8,000 right now." And I'm like, okay. So Stephanie's just ripped out the check out of the checkbook after writing it. And I said, Stephanie, tear that check up, void it, and write it for $8,000. She goes, why? I said, just do it. I you know what? Just go ahead and write it. I know for a fact it'll work. Go ahead and do it. She goes, okay. Cool. And instantly she had a state change. Her state of mind is like, whoo, yes. You could tell that she felt really good about that decision. And so she wrote it, and I felt a little bit of relief. Although I should have felt like, oh my gosh, now I've got this pressure. I'm going to have to come up with all this money. I really felt, before we even sat down to do accounting, that, by the way, the next few weeks, I can kind of just sit back, glide, and take it easy because I already know X number of $1,000 is there. All I need is this. And so I was already planning on just taking it easy, and not working as hard or doing as many things to generate income. So I tell her, go ahead and do it. And I felt great about that decision. She felt great about that decision. And accounting is over. And finally, neither one of us actually broke down in tears. That was awesome. It was a huge win. And so she's off to the bank to do a deposit. Or so I thought. Stephanie leaves. She's gone. I figure she's off. And about 3 to 5 minutes later, she's knocking on my door and comes back into my office. And I said, what's up? She goes, you have to see this. And I said, I have to see what? She goes, you're not going to believe what somebody just sent you in the mail. And I'm like, what? And this look on her face, she had an envelope. It's obviously been opened. Whatever's inside, you can tell she's already opened it up, looked at everything inside of it, and stuffed it back in. That's very clear. And the look on her face. So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm hesitant to open this thing. Well, I'm going to tell you, if you go to, I'm going to give you a website address. It is, you know what? Let me give you this, clifflink.com/check. Because what's going to happen is if you go to that link, you will see the letter that was inside of that envelope, and you will see a check that is inside of that envelope. And that check was for $12,000. And it was a contribution, a donation given freely to us with no expectation of anything in return.
From who?
Well, if you want to find out, you have to go to clifflink.com/check.
Okay, but it was somebody that had listened to your podcast and got value from, basically it was a listener just saying, here.
Yes, it was basically a listener who gained who had just discovered us a couple weeks or maybe a couple months earlier, had listened to a few of our podcasts. And by the way, the one podcast that made the most impact was the Hunger Games podcast that we did. So
way back when.
Yeah, and so he's like, listen, and of course it was not just that. I mean, the entire letter is there, but this letter just communicated, say, listen, I've received so much value from the content that you create, and you just there's something about your content that reminds me of when I first got started in business. And this is a guy who's a multi-millionaire. And he's like, I heard that you used to accept donations from people and that you just started giving all your content away for free, that if anybody still wanted to contribute, they could, but there's absolutely no expectation or need to do so. And I just felt like, I just like to give. And so this is a free gift to you. You owe me nothing. I might hire you in the future, but it's nothing related to this check. This is yours. You've already earned the full amount of my donation.
Absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning.
So what basically God was telling me, and I had no idea that was sitting, by the way, through the entire conversation, Stephanie, we were doing accounting, that check for $12,000 was actually in the mailbox in front of our house the entire time.
God's timing. God's perfect timing.
Yep. The interesting thing is, people hear this, and I certainly don't want to give anybody the impression that, hey, just go out and trust God for everything and just the money will be there. I can't say what's going to happen. What I can tell you is that things aren't always rosy and sunshines, and it doesn't always work out like the way that you would prefer. I can tell you there's been a lot of hardships over the years and stuff like that. But here's what I will tell you is whatever it is that you feel God is calling you to do in life, it may not be easy, but anytime that you're following what God is calling you to do and you're absolutely convinced that that's what God is calling you to do, there's never been a time in my life where all of the sacrifice, whether it be financial or number of hours or whatever the case may be, there's never been a time where the pain or the struggle or the risk or whatever the case may be, there's never been a time where it wasn't worth it.
Suffering has its value. Suffering has huge value. Huge in your personal growth. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just seem to be noticing today more people than ever before, people who are starting to wake up to understand that there is something bigger in life that they are meant to be a part of. And they're waking up to the fact that, hey, this is possible. In this generation, more than any before, we have so many opportunities. And I find what's most exciting is the number of people who are waking up to the reality of, wow, everything that I've been taught about life, grow up, go to school, go to college, get a job, pay your bills, work for the weekends, have a vacation once or twice a year, and as long as you got that going on and you have a couple friends or whatever, that's it. That's the good life. But the reality is there are so many other people who are waking up to the idea is like, wow, there is so much more that I can do in this world and I feel called to do. And I don't know if you've noticed that.
I think what you're saying really is that more and more people are finding out that they have a purpose, because a lot of people go through life going, why am I here? And I think you're hitting on the fact that more and more people are saying, I know my purpose, and that gives your life meaning. Without it, you're struggling. You're wandering.
Yeah. That's the exciting thing. That's what most motivates me, is to see people waking up and changing their beliefs about who they are and what they're able to achieve in this world. And for me, it's not everybody leaving the day job to go start their own business or whatever the case may be. For some people, it's just waking up and understanding, like, wow.
Well, I've been listening to you for 5 years, and I've listened to you inspire people to do just that. And I just kudos to you, Cliff. And if you live your purpose, you've got a good life.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Cliff, from cliffravenscraft.com. Great lessons in getting that nudge. And boredom is a nudge to move us. He wants us to prosper. And that's not just money. That's just fulfilled. That's fulfillment. That's finding our purpose in life, whatever that is, following that. It's just following God's plan. That's all it is. And that's what we want to do. We do that. We've got happiness in our lives. We do. All right, I'm going to go check the mailbox, and I'll be back in just, I'll be back. 2 seconds. Hold on. I got one more great story for you. Hang on. I'm back. Okay. Just bills. All right. And I want to thank Bill. Bill is new to Patreon. He's become a patron. So thank you for your financial support. And let's see. Oh, Mary's back. Thank you, Mary, for clicking the on switch again at Patreon. Right here at touchedbyheaven.net. You can see where to click and become a patron. We are striving for 100 financial supporters on a monthly basis. We thank you for that. If this podcast is a blessing to you, we hope you would consider doing that for us. And you, whether you do or don't, we keep all of you listeners and patrons in our prayers every day. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, I have a money story for you as well, and a prayer and all that. I was doing some praying about this kind of stuff because we needed a cash infusion. When you have, and anybody who's paying tuitions, all of that, a couple of kids in college, a lot of things. It's like, okay, how are we gonna do this here? So I was doing some praying, and we decided that we needed to sell this one rental property that we have. I used to live in this place, a small one-bedroom condominium in Seattle, Washington. And when I left there way back, 34 years ago, in 1984, I didn't have time to sell it. I just had time to rent it. And it was like I was looking for a renter, and a buddy of mine, a news guy, Bill, was looking for a place. And so I rented to him. It was kind of like, okay, handshake, have a nice day, see ya, and okay. So I split. But before I left, I said, hey, Bill, you have any interest in buying this place? And he said, no, I have no interest. Okay, so I split. Okay, so here we are, 34 years later. I need to sell the place. So I call the current tenant, who is still Bill. What? Yeah, it's still Bill. He's still there. He loved the place. He loved the area. I always kept the rent low, always kept it below what it could have gone for. We always had a good friendship. He's still there. I called Bill, and I said, I'm sorry, but it's time to sell the place. And he went, not the words I wanted to hear. And I said, I know, and I'm going to give you months to get out and all that kind of stuff. Look for a place and all that. So 10 minutes later, after I get off the phone, I get an email from Bill saying, or I could buy it as is. I'm going, what? As is means we don't have to go there and spend a couple of weeks, ripping out flooring and putting in new appliances and spending $10,000 that we hope we might get some of it back. And we would save on, real estate fees and all that kind of stuff. We could just do the deal. Just he and I and a title company, which was what we did. And like the blink of an eye, it was done. I mean, here it is. I'm praying in 2018. You know what God did? God's looking at the timeline going, oh, I see Trapper there is going to be saying a prayer in 2018. Well, how about we answer that in 1984? We'll give Bill a nudge and we'll put him in there. Treat him well. He's still there. You work out a deal, a fair deal, and there you go. Everybody's happy. Stunning to me. I'm just like, what? And it was so quick. And Bill's happy and I'm happy. And it was done like that. And it was like, stunning. So thank you, God. Thank you, Bill. It all worked out just fine because God is not boring, is he? He is not boring. Every day, heaven and earth collide. Heaven touches earth, and these amazing things happen. Thank you for sharing your stories. I need more stories. Come on. Fess up. You have a money story, angel story, divine intervention story, whatever it is. Please let me know at touchedbyheaven.net. I think we're good till next time. What do you say? Let's do it again next time. Here on Touched by Heaven, Everyday Encounters with God. Let's see, who am I? Well, I'm Trapper Jack.
I know, I created you.